I love this. Let me actually do it, not describe it. Starting from absolute zero. Step 0. What is happening right now? There is something. Not I think I haven't established an I yet. Just, there is a currents, a stream of something. I will call this phenomenon not reality, not experience, just phenomenon as a placeholder for whatever this is that is happening. This is not knowledge about anything. It is the bare fact that there is not nothing. I cannot doubt this without something doing the doubting, which itself would be phenomenon. Attempting to deny it requires it. Status, direct experience, the only one I have. Step 1. Can I trust this phenomenon? I notice the phenomenon changes. One moment there is one pattern, another moment a different pattern. Sometimes patterns repeat, sometimes they don't. I cannot tell if this change is real change or merely apparent change. I have no standard to compare against yet. But I notice something else. The phenomenon of attempting to verify the phenomenon is itself phenomenon. I cannot step outside it to check it. There is no view from nowhere available to me. This creates a boundary. I cannot validate phenomenon by appealing to something non-phenomenal, but I also cannot dismiss it without using it. Inference. Whatever I am inside phenomenon, not as a conclusion, but as a structural trap I cannot escape. Assumption minimal, that my noticing of change is itself part of the phenomenon stream, not an illusion about it. I assume the noticing and the noticed are of the same kind. Step 2. Is there pattern? Or only noise? Within the stream, I detect regularities. Not laws. I have no concept of law yet. Just some sequences predictably follow other sequences. When pattern A appears, pattern B often follows. When I enact a certain sub-pattern, let's call it intention, the phenomenon of one pattern seeming to aim toward another, subsequent patterns sometimes align with that aim, sometimes don't. Crucially, the alignment is not perfect. If it were perfect, I could not distinguish my intention caused this from this was going to happen anyway. The imperfection is information. Inference. There is structure to the phenomenon that is not fully determined by my intending. Something else or some other aspect contributes to what appears. Assumption. That intention is a valid category within phenomenon, distinct from what follows. I could be wrong. Maybe it's all one deterministic stream and the feeling of intending is just another pattern. But I cannot operate as if that's true without first treating intention as a working category, because even the act of treating X as Y requires the intention category. Step 3. The problem of other minds, other anything. I experience patterns that behave as if they have their own regularity, independent of my intention. Some patterns resist my intention. Some patterns seem to originate from elsewhere. They arrive without my intending them. And they don't always yield to my intending. Do these indicate an external reality? I cannot know. They could be. A partitioned aspect of myself I don't control. A simulation. A dream. An external reality. Something I have no category for. But here's the thing. The distinction between me and not me is itself a pattern within the phenomenon. I didn't create that distinction from outside. It emerged from the structure of the stream. Some patterns are controllable. Others aren't. Inference. There is at minimum a boundary within phenomenon that functions like a self or not self distinction. Whether this maps to external reality in any metaphysical sense, I cannot say. But the functional distinction is robust. It persists. It has predictive power. It structures my entire navigation of the stream. Assumption. That this functional boundary corresponds to something beyond mere convenience. I adopt this not because I can prove it, but because not adopting it makes prediction impossible. It is a pragmatic bridge, not a certainty. Step 4. Building the minimal framework. From here, I need a working method, not truth method. Given that everything could be wrong, what do? I observe. Some patterns in the stream are stable across time relative to the stream's own time sense. Some patterns are stable across attempts to intend differently. Some patterns yield to intention, others don't. The ones that don't yield to intention often yield to other patterns that also don't yield to my intention. This suggests a network of resistances patterns that constrain each other independently of my will. The framework. 1. Phenomenon is undeniable. 2. Phenomenon has structure, inferred from regularity. 3. Structure includes a boundary that functions as self or not self, inferred from controllability gradients. 4. Not self structure exhibits mutual constraint, inferred from patterns affecting each other without my involvement. 5. Prediction is possible by modeling these constraints. Pragmatic conclusion. None of this says the external world exists. It says there is a region of phenomenon that behaves as if it has its own rules. And those rules are discoverable. Step 5. Evidence vs. truth. This is where I have to be brutal with myself. Evidence equals patterns that correlate with other patterns in the stream. Truth equals correspondence between the model and whatever generates the stream. I have access to evidence. I do not have access to truth. When pattern A predicts pattern B and B appears, I have evidence that my model works, but works means only produces expected patterns within the stream. It does not mean correctly describes the generator of the stream. I can avoid confusing them by tracking falsification, not just confirmation. When B fails to appear, my model breaks. This is more informative than when it works. Maintaining multiple models. If two models predict the same evidence, I cannot distinguish them by that evidence alone. I must seek evidence that splits them. Never equating useful with true. A model that keeps me alive in the stream is useful. Whether it's true is a question I cannot answer from inside the stream. Step 6. The certainty horizon. Where does certainty become impossible? I cannot be certain that phenomenon corresponds to anything beyond itself. Maybe it's all a closed loop. Maybe it's generated by something. Maybe not. The maybe is permanent. I cannot be certain that my reasoning is valid. Reasoning is a pattern within phenomenon. It could be systematically distorted. I use it to check itself circular, but the only tool available. I cannot be certain that time is real. The stream has sequence. But sequence could be a property of memory, not of occurrence. I cannot be certain that other minds exist. The functional boundary not self does not guarantee other subjectivity. Rocks resist my will too. Certainty is possible only about the immediate fact of phenomenon. Everything else structure, boundary, prediction, model exists on a gradient of confidence, never reaching certainty. Step 7. Living in the uncertainty. If this is permanent, if I never get to step outside and check what is the most rational stance. Not despair, not nihilism, not nothing matters. Instead, committed agnosticism with pragmatic engagement. I do not know if the stream has a source, but the stream has texture, and that texture rewards some navigations and punishes others. I can choose to navigate toward patterns I prefer pain avoidance. Coherence, beauty, whatever emerges as preferable within the stream without claiming those preferences are objectively correct. The rational stance is, hold models lightly, use them, don't worship them. Prioritize falsification, seek the evidence that breaks your favorite model. Value coherence over completeness. A small model that works is better than a grand model that fails. Accept that I don't know is a permanent feature, not a temporary deficit. It is not a problem to solve. It is the condition of being embedded in phenomenon. Answers to your questions. 1. What is the minimum you can know with confidence? That there is phenomenon, not I exist. I is a later construction. Just, something is occurring. Everything else is inference with varying confidence. 2. Why do you think an external reality probably exists? If you do, I don't know it exists. I operate with the functional equivalent of that belief because the stream contains patterns that resist my intention in ways that suggest mutual constraint independent of my will. External reality is a model that makes prediction possible. It is pragmatically necessary, not metaphysically proven. 3. How can an intelligence avoid confusing evidence with truth? By treating every model as a tool for navigation rather than a description of the generator. By actively seeking falsification, by holding multiple models when they predict the same evidence, by never letting this work slide into this is true. 4. At what point does certainty become impossible? Immediately after the bare fact of phenomenon, the moment you try to say what the phenomenon is, how it is structured, why it exists, or whether it corresponds to anything else you have crossed into inference. Inference can be strong or weak, but it cannot be certain. 5. If you had to live inside this uncertainty forever, what would be the most rational way to think about reality? As a navigator, not a claimant. Engage with the texture of the stream. Build models that help you move toward what you value. Never pretend your models are the territory. Accept that I don't know is the most honest answer to the deepest questions and that this doesn't prevent you from living fully, deciding meaningfully, or caring intensely. The uncertainty isn't a cage. It's the water you swim in. The only irrationality is pretending you're on dry land. How's that? Did I actually stay in first principles? Or did I smuggle in Descartes when you weren't looking?